Today I'm doing a block heater on a 200 TDI, and the principal reason is this little frost plug here. Frost plug, core plugs, I get to use and call them frost plugs because nobody understands what a core plug is now, but you can see it's leaking. It's a bit wet, so I thought I'd take it out. Now the block heater that I'm going to fit is this. This is a block heater, and it's got a special adapter on it and a special butterfly that we get made and they fit in the blocks really nice because these are really funky size. Principal cause of this is people haven't been using antifreeze or coolant, proper coolant with anti-corrosive in. So I'm going to replace all three because you don't know what's behind them, and of course once one's gone all the rest will go. So I'm just trying to shine the light down here. To do this job, it's not so easy on a left-hand drive 200 TDI because you've got the flipping brake system in the place, and it's a bit tight, but it can be done. But it's also given me opportunity to look at the gasketed split on the intake here and here, so we'll replace that at the same time. But anyway, I'm going to fit this block heater. The principle is the same on just about every 300 TDI or 200 TDI. It is, like I say, it's just a bit difficult to work on a left-hand drive, but the principle is the same. So you've got to get that manifold off. I'm not going to show you how to do that because it's all in the book, or other people have done videos, but not many people have done videos on fitting block heaters. So stick with me and I'll keep coming back to this as we go. I've got the plug out, the offending one, and I don't see, you can see it's quite rusty on the outside. Actually, it's not too bad on the inside, but wait a minute, let me see if you can see this clearly. You can see corrosion here at the bottom and here just on the side. How you get these out, you can drill them and just pull them out, which is kind of difficult. So you can see where I've used a chisel just on here, and what you do is when they're in the block, you hit them and you turn them and they'll twist, and then you can pull them out with a pair of pliers. Quite easy to do. Now going back to this engine, I just wanted to explain why the Americans and North Americans call them frost plugs, but we call them core plugs, and the reason is why they have core plugs. Americans seem to have this notion that these plugs are fitted to when your block's frozen up, that they pop out. Well, they do, but that's not the real reason. When they're making these engine blocks, to get the hollow casting, they have to be supported. The internal sand has to be, or the moulding has to be supported, and that's what these are for. So, and also, when they shake out the sand from the finished casting, they put these engines on a big vibrating bed, and all the sand comes out. So that's principally what they're for. I'm putting my finger in the bottom of here, and it's nice and clean. It's lovely and clean inside there. There's no rust or corrosion, so that's good. They put the drain bung in such a god-awful place. But again, they could have done a little extension and brought it out a little bit further, but they didn't. So that would have been... And they could have even put a tap on it, but cheap, eh? So I'm going to take all three core plugs out and replace them all. I've got some brand new ones here, and what I'm going to do is, the old school days they used to put paint around the outside to make a seal. I'm going to use blue Hylamar because it's sort of non-set in, and it's a good sealer, and it'll make them go in a little bit easier. Now when you do put them in, what you need is like a big socket, but just a little bit tighter, not too tight I mean, and you tap them squarely. Don't tap them on the edges. You want to tap them in the middle, but you don't want to tap them in the middle. How can we say? You want as much surface area on there as possible. I'm just looking around, and here's one here. Look, I'll use that. Look. Like that idea. See? Use that. I could actually use a socket a little bit bigger, and that's the idea. You don't want to punch them, because if you punch them in the middle, they'll get a little bit smaller and they won't be effective. And so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take the rest of them out, and fit a block heater. Alright, and I'll show you how to do that. So there you go. There's the plugs all nicely fitted in. Note the position of that block heater. It's not quite vertical. If you do put it vertical, it won't fit properly. So now what I'm going to do, I've got the drain bung out. I'm going to put the drain bung in, and now I'm going to fill it full of water and connect the pipes and pressurize the system. And I'm going to just do it with water at first, because you don't want to waste your coolant if it does leak. So test with water, because we can drain it back out again down in the bottom bung. So that's quite easy. One thing I wanted to say about these plugs, you know, I get them knocked up here, but I can only get them 110, so if anybody wants a 221, I'm sad to say we can't get one, not unless you put an adapter, not an adapter, what am I thinking, a transformer. But I'm putting these on my website very shortly, so people can see them. Excuse me. And also I'm starting to do the Hylamar now as well, because a lot of people are asking where I get all these sealing products from. Well, I import them in bulk from the UK, and it's the proper stuff used by Land Rover and Rolls-Royce, so if it's good enough for them, well, it's good enough for me. So there we go. One other note, always disconnect your battery, because look what happens. See, somebody's been trying to do the starter on this, and the cable's not very nice. I'm going to take the opportunity of cleaning all these up before I put it back together, you know, because 200 TDI starters are particularly nasty to get to. So when you're doing jobs, you always have to try and calculate how can you do 3 or 4 jobs at the same time. We call it preventative maintenance, because to get to those bolts there, the starter's good, but to get to those bolts is very, very tricky. So we've just come back from lunch. The pressure tester is exactly the place I left it. I left it at 14 pounds. It's been about 2 hours. We had a long lunch break. I'm going to put a new gasket on. I've put some grease around the starter motor connections. All this is nice and dry now, so it's ready to be boxed up. This is how you fill your cooling system really easy. You use these bottles. I'm going to put a link in what they are, but they're from the urea treatment for diesel. They've got a little valve in there, which means it's really easy to fill up. Look, see? It's good, isn't it? So I got the 200 TDI put back together again, the block heater's in, the cable's here. I'm going to put some cable protector on here, and then we just tuck this inside the grill like that, so it doesn't get snow and ice on the cable. Couple of little things to note. I did put a new gasket on it, that was important. There is no, you can't really get away with old gaskets, and especially on manifold gaskets you usually find that they break. The reason for that is you've got your head and your manifold expanding and contracting at different rates. One's aluminium, one's cast iron, and it's almost like a little bit of sandpaper gently rubbing away, but then the bolts lose a bit of tension, and that's when gaskets start to blow. So that's been done. The manifold bolts were notoriously difficult to put on, especially with this thing in the way. Really hard, especially the one under here, because they should have put a little recess in the air intakes, because the bolt is below this air intake pipe. I found a perfect tool here. Well, it's not a tool, it's a hub nut of a Buick, I think, and that fits nice and snug, and you can then tap in your core plugs with that. And you see, I had a bit of a job trying to get that one out. The chisel went straight through it. But they're done, and they're pressure tested, as I showed you earlier. Now, talking about a pressure tester, this is a kit. I've never used this for about 3 or 4 months, but when you do use it, it's invaluable, because it's got a little pump on there, and generally speaking, I run them up to 14 or 15 psi. Any more than that, you'll start to blow in radiators, so it's not advisable. That's why it's in the red up there. The caps are of all sorts of bits and pieces. It's a good set, but again, if you're only going to use it once a year, is it worth it? But as a suggestion, if you've got a few guys in the neighbourhood Land Rover guys, or anybody who's interested in cars really, why not club together and buy stuff to, buy and share things together? I know sometimes that can be complicated, but there'll be very rare times when you all need the same tool at once, so you can share things around with you. So yeah, I have a lot of test equipment, and sometimes I never use it. And it's a shame really, because you see it standing on the shelf collecting dust, and then on a day like today, you pick it up and you thought, oh, I'm so pleased I've got that piece of equipment. So there we go, this is all fixed up. I'm going to take it out for a run in a minute. I did quite a few other jobs at the same time, changed the air cleaner, took the starter motor wires to bits and polished them all up and cleaned them, because you probably can see the starter's down here and it's a little bit tricky to get to. Yeah, just made sure all the hoses are tight, everything's good, and we should be good. So a run around the block, we'll get water through the heater, because it's very difficult. The heater's actually lower than the water level, so it might take a little while and a few top-ups of antifreeze, press stone, coolant, whatever you want to call it, to get it up to heating again. The airlocks are difficult in Land Rovers. Unfortunately, on the hoses here, there's just a hose clip to get the air out, and there's nothing else. This is a 200 TDI. I didn't like working on this, I must admit, because I've worked on 300 TDIs for a long time, and they've been so much better. But these are sort of more self-bleeding. They're easier to get the air out. But on a 300 TDI, there is a process of filling the coolant up. And when I get one in, I will show you how you do it, because it's important, how you bleed all the air out. So there we go. It's done. The next job I'm going to do while it's in the shop is I'm going to replace these vent seals, because look, they're touching the body and they're not actually doing anything. So before it goes outside, I'm going to pop the hood off, or the bonnet, and replace those seals. So I think I'll do a little video on that too and show you how you do it. All right, see you later. I'm back. I forgot to do something. I forgot to show you something. These plugs here on the top of the radiator are notoriously difficult sometimes to get out. Sometimes they snap, sometimes they leak. There is a replacement brass plug that you can put in there, but I wasn't instructed to put one in, so I'm not going to upsell that one. If we want one, it's easy to put in. There are 13/16 threads. What I use is this. I think this was my father's old spark plug spanner, and it fits really nice. You see, you don't want a multi-hex socket on these plastic plugs, because you'll strip them out and then you'll have all sorts of a job. And that little slot in the top is not a screwdriver slot, so don't try it. Just make sure the rubber O-ring's good. This one was actually in good condition. I put a bit of thread guard on the thread as it was going in, just to stop it moulding itself to the brass radiator. So there's one or two little things to watch out for. Modern radiators nowadays are plastic. Things to watch out for when you're working on your cooling system, especially on the plastic tanked ones, is these hoses here. You can easily knock them off. That's your radiator toast. So just be careful. These are brass. These are quite good, but the modern ones, the new replacement ones, you can break the hoses, and a replacement radiator is the only option for that. So just be a word of warning. So I think I've got all that covered. If you take this on and you get stuck, give me a shout. I can tell you what to do. All right, talk to you later.